Queen Anne, I mean, to map that out when you started to see her health decline, it was quite kind of, it was how far to go with that, and we had to keep sort of moving that on slowly more and more, and we added the prosthetics when you see them for her leg, her gout leg, but we actually made prosthetics. They were sort of a kind of cruder version that could be put on under stockings, so that Olivia still had that sort of bulk in the leg, and she still had, you know, you're very aware of having something in your leg, so when she walked it was still there. And that was added more and more as we went along in the story, until we get to those very end scenes when, you know, there's a post-stroke, we could do things with the face and with her arm to kind of, you know, show a real deterioration. With Emma's character, Abigail, when she first turns up to the court, and she's turned up as this young kind of naive girl, and she's got a little straw bonnet on and this cute kind of curly hair. And then as she goes along, there's a different, the thing is with her is that her status changes so much. So we were able to map that out in her hairstyles until eventually she gets to where Rachel Weisz's character is, Lady Sarah, and she kind of, her hair mirrors when we first see Sarah. So she's really kind of changed as she goes along. We had a lot of wigs in the film, and we think there was probably about 115, something like that. I phoned around at first to find as many as I could, and there's a certain amount in circulation, but then after that we really started to run out, and when the crowd numbers were going up we just realised that we weren't going to have enough wigs, and also the size of the budget and the time that we had, we just weren't in a position to make wigs for all these people. So we got one of the wigs and kind of took it apart and figured out how we could make it ourselves. And so my team, particularly my main wig assistant, Anna Morena, she kind of sat and stitched these at home while she was watching TV. They had no makeup on apart from when they're meant to have makeup on. There was a time we put some concealer on under Emma Stone's eyes, and Yorgos spotted it and made me take it off. He really, really didn't want it. And actually looking back and watching the film now, it was absolutely the right decision. It was, you needed to see it. And I never think that makeup should be an obstruction or a barrier. And the film is about those characters, and you need to see the sweat, you need to see their skin and kind of feel them. And I think that's such an important part of makeup. Nicholas Hoult didn't know anything about his character's look at all. I think he thought, I've joined this period piece and I might have to wear a wig because it's a period piece, but no idea that Harley was going to look like he looked. So when I first showed him the concept, he was, I mean, he said, call my agent, but in a joking way, and then he really got into it. And then the wigs got bigger and bigger, and he named them. There was Barbara and Hattie and Lulu. Well, the badger, the actual line obviously is in the script. It says, you look like a badger. And I've got a notebook. I always work with a notebook, and I always write down all ideas or things that I need to do, or constantly crossing those out and lists. And that just kept reappearing in my notebook because I didn't know what to do with it. I thought, how do you make someone's makeup look like a badger? I mean, how far do we go with this? Basically what happened was that I sort of established the courtiers, the makeup on the women first, with these black bands across their eyes, these white faces and black bands across their eyes, which is, I've said this now, I think enough time has passed, it's a slight homage to Blade Runner as well because I love it. This sort of band. And then I thought, oh, maybe that we could do that, something badger-like about that. And the idea is that the Queen has copied a female courtier that she's seen, and but it's done quite badly and quite crudely, and something a bit sort of quite childlike about it.
I mean, we just had a very close relationship with the caretakers of the house, and so they made it very clear that the primary consideration for them was communication. So we weren't allowed to spring anything on anybody. You know, we had to go through, we had amazing itemized sheets of every single element that they have in there, and we went through and, you know, we pointed out what needed to be moved, and we had these, you know, A4 sheets of paper that listed everything. And so there needed to be art handlers involved, and, you know, the people that run the archives, and so they were responsible, where normally on a film, our department would be responsible for moving things around. They needed to be involved because the items are so precious. What we did was we built within each space. So there's walls that are in the sets that so for example, the obvious example is, the secret passageway doesn't exist. So we needed to create false walls to get you in and out of that. We also built that as a set. Abigail's bedroom is built in a space that's in Hatfield House, but it's just a big, massive empty room. So we sort of treated empty spaces of Hatfield like a studio. It's like all of Yorgos's films, there's an internal logic. So without explanation, there's a duck race. That's just the logic of this world. This is the whim and, of the court. And so we needed to create a visual landscape that accommodated that, which just took, we talk about the wheelchair, and the wheelchair, we designed a wheelchair. Wheelchairs didn't exist at that point in time. So we had to come up with a version of the wheelchair, and we came up with two concepts. One was very simple, one was quite involved. And when it came to coming onto the set, the really ornate Queen's wheelchair was too much. Just felt it was pushing too hard. When in fact the simple one was absolutely right. There's a delicacy to all the furniture in the film anyway. So the minute something kind of chunky came in, it just felt overthought. And this is what I mean by walking this line, like trying to find a balance where you're not being clever. We never wanted to be clever. We're just trying to be, we're just doing what felt right.
Oh, the spa was really fun. Well, Fiona was really pushing for that, weren't you? Because it was kind of coming in and out because we had to build the whole thing.
The spa, we're a low budget film. And so the spa was one that we just were struggling with budget-wise. And it's such an important story beat that, it was a real wrestle, and I felt it was very important. So we worked out a way. I remember doing some kind of proposal and writing to Yorgos saying, okay, I think I can pull it off, like if we do this. And he just is very succinct, and he wrote back something like, oh, could be good. Yeah. And I was like, amazing. We just worked out a way to go in very quickly. I think we had probably a week there, and we were using an existing room, but it's a Victorian kitchen. So we had to clad the entire space with the marble and build, the level for the bath, and obviously bring in the bath and do all that work. But it just felt like, it's one of those lovely moments it's like a little gem, because you're out of the royal court. And plus it was always fun for us the whole way through to say, what is the ultimate version of a day spa? So, we kept sort of trying to hit these peak marks, like what is the most, brilliant version of this? And so that's what,
Deborah had written the script, and Yorgos had found that and liked the story, and I think they'd done a draft together. And then he was looking for he's got a very particular take on the world, which is his genius. And then he was looking for a writer to sort of re-engineer the whole period movie factor, and sort of look at the story again and how we could tell it in a more sort of fresh contemporary way. And so he read a lot of writers, and then he read a couple of things I'd written and decided maybe I'd be good. Yeah, that was sort of the biggest issue, was how to balance the protagonist's story, but tonally, it's sort of what, I do it naturally, is sort of this comedy that it's dark comedy that sort of shifts around a little bit. But we would go through the script, and sometimes we would think a scene was too funny. So I would write it back a little bit, and we knew the idea was the film's very funny for quite a long time, and then it sort of starts to drift a little bit. So you're just aware of making sure it drifts slowly towards tragedy and keeps the comedy. So you just sort of adjust it as you go. I think I just went, first, to me, it's all about the characters. So I just went back and thought about, and Yorgos and I talked about what sort of characters they should be to get the tone we wanted and to get the feel we wanted. And so I sort of left, so I wasn't really concerned what they were actually like. I knew a bit of each of their history from Deborah's script, but then it was about what will give us the tone we want and what will be, and I was really conscious of not doing it so that we were looking back at something. I really wanted to feel like the characters were very now, in the sense that you know, they've got all these issues, and the difference between us and them is nothing except they live in a giant castle and have big dresses. I think it taught me, like, you can just, I mean, I sort of knew it, but I think it was like you can be bold and hope for the best and hope people like it. And as long as, I think we were always just we were always writing a movie we thought was great. Like, we never really thought about, like, I don't remember ever thinking about whether people would like it or, you know, which is very him. He's very like, what I want to do is what I want to do. And so it was fun. So I guess I didn't realise how fun it could be collaborating like that. And I hadn't written heaps of movies and I hadn't been super interested in writing movies. So it made, you know, I learned I love writing movies.